Karen calls the cops on my driveway. Then HOA tries to fine me. This is the story of how my entitled neighbor and her puppet, HOA, tried to claim ownership of my private driveway, and how it spectacularly blew up in their faces. Some background. My wife and I bought our dream home about 2 years ago. It's a beautiful colonial-style house set back from the main road, with a long private driveway that runs alongside what used to be empty land. The previous owner had actually constructed this driveway himself, after getting all the proper permits and surveys done. This detail becomes important later. About 6 months ago, a developer bought the empty lot next door and built a small gated community of luxury townhomes. That's when our troubles began. The development came with its own HOA, which wasn't a problem since our property wasn't part of it. At least it shouldn't have been a problem. The first sign of trouble came when one of the new residents, let's call her Karen, started using our driveway as her personal shortcut to the main road. Instead of going through her community's main entrance, she'd cut across her lawn and drive down our private driveway. At first, we thought she was just confused about property lines, being new to the area and all. I caught her one morning as she was pulling out. "Excuse me," I called out, trying to be neighborly. "I noticed you've been using our driveway. This is actually private property." Karen barely rolled down her window. "Oh, don't worry about it. I'm just taking a shortcut. It's much more convenient than going all the way around." "Well, it's not a public road," I explained. "It's our private driveway, and we'd prefer if you didn't use it." She waved dismissively. "Don't be silly. All roads here are for everyone's use. You can't stop people from using a driveway." Before I could argue further, she drove off. That evening, I installed a security camera covering the driveway and ordered some private property, no trespassing signs. I figured that would solve the problem. It didn't. A week later, Karen was still using our driveway daily. The signs didn't deter her at all. So I decided to take more direct action. I installed a simple gate at the entrance of our driveway. Nothing fancy, just a basic swing gate that we could easily open and close. We made sure to get all the proper permits first, learning from the previous owner's thoroughness. The morning after we installed the gate, I was working from home when I heard angry honking outside. I checked the security camera feed to see Karen's luxury SUV stopped at our now closed gate. She was laying on the horn like it was going out of style. I walked out to find her red-faced and furious. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded. "Remove this gate immediately." "As I told you before, this is a private driveway," I said calmly. "You need to use your own community's entrance." "This is ridiculous," she shouted. "You can't block access like this. I'm calling the police." I shrugged. "Go ahead. This is private property and I have all the permits for the gate." Karen pulled out her phone and made a big show of dialing 911. I just went back inside to work, keeping an eye on the security feed. About 15 minutes later, 2 police cruisers pulled up. I grabbed my folder of property documents and headed out to meet them. One officer was already talking to Karen, who was gesturing wildly at the gate. The other approached me for my side of the story. "Sir, we received a complaint about you illegally blocking a public road," he said. I smiled and opened my folder. "Officer, I have here the property deed, survey maps, and permits for both the driveway and the gate. This is a private driveway on my property, not a public road." The officer reviewed the documents while Karen continued ranting to his partner about her right to access. After a few minutes, both officers approached her. "Ma'am, this is a private driveway," the first officer explained. "The owner has every right to restrict access. You need to use your own community's entrance." "But I've been using this driveway for months," Karen protested. "That makes it a public right-of-way." The officer shook his head. "That's not how it works. If you continue to use this driveway without permission, you could be charged with trespassing." Karen stormed off to her car and peeled out of our driveway for the last time. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. So very wrong. The next day, I received a letter from the neighboring HOA. They were fining me $500 for unauthorized modification of community property, by installing the gate. I actually laughed out loud when I read it. Then I received another letter fining me $1,000 for blocking community access. I called the HOA office immediately. "Hi, I'm calling about these ridiculous fines I just received," I said when the property manager answered. "Yes, you're the owner who installed the illegal gate," she replied snippily. "The board has reviewed the situation and determined you're in violation of community guidelines." "I'm not even part of your HOA," I explained. "You have no authority over my property." "Sir, your driveway connects to our community and has been used by our residents. That makes it a community access point subject to HOA regulations." I was dumbfounded by the mental gymnastics. That's not how property laws work. I'm not paying these fines. "Then we'll be placing a lien on your property," she said smugly. "The board meeting is next week if you'd like to appeal." I hung up and immediately called my lawyer. He was just as amazed by their audacity as I was. "Don't worry," he assured me. "They have absolutely no legal standing here. But let's have some fun with this." The next week, I attended their board meeting. Karen was there, sitting with the board members. Turns out she'd recently been elected HOA secretary. Why was I not surprised? When my turn to speak came, I approached the podium with my lawyer beside me. Before I could even start, Karen interrupted. "We don't allow outside legal representation at board meetings," she said quickly. My lawyer smiled. "Actually, since you're attempting to enforce HOA regulations on a non-member property owner, this becomes a legal matter where I absolutely have standing to be present." The board president, looking uncertain, allowed us to continue. I laid out my case, showing all documentation proving my property ownership and the legality of both the driveway and gate. My lawyer then explained in detail how their actions constituted harassment and abuse of power. Furthermore, he added, attempting to place a lien on property outside your jurisdiction could be considered fraud. We've prepared a counterclaim for harassment and legal fees. The board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. All except Karen, who burst out, "This is absurd. That driveway has been used by residents, which clearly makes it community property." My lawyer raised an eyebrow. "Are you suggesting that trespassing on private property somehow grants ownership rights to the trespassers?" The HOA's lawyer, who had been quietly observing until now, finally spoke up. "The board will need to review these documents and consult on this matter. We'll provide a response within 30 days. But I wasn't done yet. I stood up and addressed the room. "I've brought copies of all permits and property documents for everyone here, including satellite images showing how your development's approved plans never included my driveway as an access point. I've also included screenshots from my security cameras showing Karen repeatedly trespassing after being warned to stop." You could hear a pin drop in that room. Several residents were glaring at their board members. Karen's face had turned an interesting shade of purple. The response came much sooner than 30 days. The next morning, I received a certified letter from the HOA's lawyer. All fines were rescinded, and they included a formal acknowledgement that they had no jurisdiction over my property. They also agreed to pay my legal fees to avoid any countersuits. But the best part? At the next HOA meeting, which I heard about from a sympathetic neighbor, Karen was voted off the board. Apparently, several residents were angry about the HOA, nearly getting them all sued because of her vendetta over a driveway. These days, our gate stays closed and no one gives us trouble about it. Karen still glares at me whenever she drives past on the main road, but she stays far away from our driveway. The HOA found themselves a new secretary, one who apparently understands basic property laws. I did make one change after all this drama. I installed a bigger, more permanent gate with a security keypad. The new gate cost about exactly what I received from the HOA for legal fees. Seemed like a fitting use of the money. My wife thinks I should let it go, but I couldn't resist one final touch. I had a small sign made for the gate that reads, "Private property, not a community access point." No, really. Every time I see Karen drive past and scowl at it, I can't help but smile. Edit. Wow, this blew up overnight. Thanks for all the awards and supportive comments. To answer some common questions. 1. Yes, I still have all the security cameras running. Better safe than sorry. 2. No, Karen hasn't tried to use the driveway again. The police warning about trespassing charges seems to have stuck. 3. Several people asked about the property values. From what I hear, they've actually gone up since this incident. Turns out people appreciate HOAs that respect property rights. Edit 2. For those asking about legal costs, yes, the HOA had to pay for everything, including the consultation fees from when I first contacted my lawyer. The total came to just under $3,000, which covered both my legal fees and the new gate. Karma works in beautiful ways sometimes. Update, 6 months later. You guys won't believe what's been happening since my last post. Grab some popcorn because this story just keeps getting better. Remember Karen, my entitled neighbor who thought she could claim my driveway as community property? Well, she didn't take her defeat lying down. After getting voted off the HOA board, she apparently decided to make it her life's mission to prove she was somehow right all along. First, she tried filing a complaint with the city planning department, claiming my driveway was illegally constructed. That backfired spectacularly when the planning office pulled up the original permits and surveys. Turns out the previous owner had actually gone above and beyond with documentation. The city inspector who came out literally complimented me on having one of the best documented private driveways he'd ever seen. But Karen wasn't done. She started telling anyone who would listen that my illegal gate was hurting property values. She even tried to organize a petition to have the city force me to remove it. That effort died pretty quickly when my neighbors, the reasonable ones, pointed out that property values had actually gone up since the gate was installed. The real entertainment started when Karen decided to try a new approach. One morning, I checked my security cameras and saw her placing small property marker flags along my driveway. I zoomed in to see what she was up to. The flags had little paper tags attached reading, "Community Access Point, Do Not Remove." I called my lawyer immediately. He just laughed and said, "Let me guess, Karen's at it again?" I left the flags up but documented everything with photos and video. 2 days later, Karen started telling residents that the flags proved the driveway was community property because they'd been there for 48 hours without being disputed. My lawyer sent her a cease and desist letter, including a helpful explanation of actual property law and why placing false property markers could be considered criminal mischief. The flags disappeared that same day. But here's where it gets really good. Remember how I mentioned the HOA got a new secretary after Karen was voted out? Well, this person actually did their job properly and started reviewing old records. They discovered something interesting. Karen had been misusing HOA funds during her brief time as secretary. Apparently, she had submitted expense reports for community legal consultations that were actually consultations with a private lawyer about claiming my driveway. She spent over $2,000 of HOA money trying to build a case against me before the board even got involved. The new board was not happy. They called a special meeting to address the misappropriation of funds. I got to attend since it involved the driveway dispute. Karen showed up with her own lawyer, which really should have been her first move all along. The meeting was pure chaos. Karen tried to claim she was acting in the community's interest, but her lawyer kept trying to shush her. The HOA's lawyer presented evidence that she had deliberately misled the board about the legal status of my driveway to push her personal agenda. Mrs. Karen's last name, the HOA lawyer said, "You submitted these invoices as community legal expenses, but the lawyer's notes clearly show you were seeking advice about personal litigation against a private property owner. How do you explain that?" Karen's face went red. The driveway access affects everyone. I was protecting our rights. "What rights?" one board member asked. "We have our own entrance. Nobody needs his driveway except you because you're too lazy to drive around." Several residents spoke up about how Karen had convinced them to support her crusade by lying about the property laws. One lady even admitted Karen had told her that blocking public access was a federal crime. The HOA lawyer had to stifle a laugh at that one. In the end, the board voted to demand Karen repay the misused funds. When she refused, they took her to small claims court. She lost, obviously. The judge was not impressed by her argument that she had the right to spend HOA money fighting imaginary property battles. But karma wasn't done with Karen yet. During the small claims case, it came out that she had also used HOA letterhead to send threatening letters to other neighbors about various made-up violations. The board started investigating and found she'd been running quite the intimidation campaign during her brief time as secretary. Last week, I saw moving trucks at Karen's house. Turns out she's selling her place and leaving the community. I heard through the grapevine that the HOA drama and legal fees pushed her over the edge. Can't say I'm sad to see her go. The new HOA board actually invited me to their monthly cookout as a peace offering. I accepted, and you know what? They're not bad people when they're not being manipulated by power-hungry Karens. We had a good laugh about the whole driveway saga. They even asked if I'd consider letting residents use my driveway during their upcoming road maintenance week. I agreed, but with a proper written agreement, gate codes that expire after the work is done, and signed liability waivers. See, Karen? That's how civilized people handle access issues. The best part? The HOA used Karen's repaid funds to install some really nice landscaping around their main entrance. Now nobody even thinks about using my driveway as a shortcut because their entrance looks so much more inviting. Oh, and remember my snarky gate sign? I took it down and replaced it with a simple private drive marker. Didn't need the extra sass anymore since Karen's gone. Though I have to admit, I kept the old sign in my garage as a souvenir. Some memories are worth preserving. Final edit. Thanks again for all the support and awards. To those asking, yes, I still have the security cameras running. Old habits die hard, and they've come in handy for catching delivery drivers who get confused about property lines. But these days, they mostly just record birds and squirrels instead of entitled neighbors trying to claim my driveway. Life is good. The next one is titled, Gave My Ex a Surprise When I Left Unexpectedly. My ex and I were planning on separating. It was a toxic relationship. He was a controlling narcissist, and I had been under his thumb for far too long. I was in counseling, and my therapist and I mapped out the best way for me to get out, although the details of the plan were my idea. I got a better paying job. I opened my own bank account. That was a huge fight, and I figured out where to go. He knew I was leaving, and he even went through the house and marked all of the things that were his that I couldn't take with me, which was basically everything we purchased throughout our 13 years together. I was only allowed to take the items that I came with when we moved in together. He planned to take the day off from work on a particular Saturday and would be there to supervise my move to ensure that I only took what he approved. That's where my plan began. The Saturday before his planned date, I scheduled to move after he left for work. He worked long days, so I knew I could pack and leave before he returned. About an hour after he left, my friends and family showed up with boxes and tape and a moving truck. I parked it out back so my neighbors didn't see it. In less than 4 hours, all of my belongings were packed and on the truck, and I pretty much stuck to his rules, because I didn't want reminders of our life in my future. Before I left in the truck, I went through and grabbed every single towel, washcloth, sheet, toilet paper, paper towel, napkin, and tissue. I took anything and everything that he could wipe his butt or his nose with. And I took the carpet runner that was at the front door, leaving the tape that secured it to the floor. That way he knew as soon as he walked in that I was gone. Imagine coming home from work after a long day, expecting one thing and finding another, and then not having a single tissue or toilet paper to use. My best revenge was building a happy new life, but that day made me feel so good.